Hello, friends. If you guys are just joining us, we're going to wait a couple of minutes to allow people to join us, and then we will go ahead and get started. So until then, you get to stare at our amazing faces as we sit here awkwardly. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Pastor Justin. I am associate pastor at Hillspring Church and in charge of the amazing controlled chaos that we love to call our youth. Just an incredible tribe of young men and women who are figuring out who they are and how they're going to make their mark on this world. And today we have the amazing honor of talking to three local experts in the area of teens. We thought that we would take advantage of their expertise and have a conversation surrounding teens and crisis and how to navigate crisis so that our time in the midst of this pandemic can actually be fruitful and we can learn to thrive instead of just praying to survive. And so with me, we have Chandra Markel. And say hi, Chandra.
Hi.
Chandra is the counselor at Richland High School. And we met Chandra a little while ago. There was an amazing young man whose life unfortunately ended early, and she had been journeying with a group of his friends, and they played basketball at Hillspring all the time. And so in honor of their friend, they wanted to do something. And so we met Chandra and this amazing group of guys. They came and planted a blue spruce tree on our campus in his memory. And it's the tree is doing well. So guys, if you're watching, it's doing amazing. But that's how we got to know Chandra, and it has led to this and hopefully many more opportunities. And joining myself and Chandra, we have Courtney, and Courtney is a local therapist. She has a private practice in Richland, Washington, and she focuses on youth, teens, and young adults. And when I asked her to define young adults, she said, "Hey, I'll take someone who's 56, who's young at heart." So I love that. And then in addition to that, we also have Liz. And Liz is the senior counselor at Hanford High School. And she did or mentored under Chandra. Is that correct? Okay. So we have an amazing panel, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And so really, I guess the first question that I would have for you all is, what should we expect? What are some common ways that teens respond to crisis? And anyone can take it.
I can take the lead on that one. So just to give a little bit of context, I have been seeing clients individually. So my teenagers have continued doing telehealth, so kind of like what we're doing now, via video. And then I also run online groups for teens as well. And the common feedback that I've been getting from teens specifically about how they're responding to this, I think the biggest thing is that they're feeling really unheard by adults right now in terms of their own experiences and how difficult that this has been for them. And I think that translates into how we as adults perceive teenagers right now. It kind of looks like moodiness. It looks like bigger attitudes. Sometimes it can look like secluding oneself, hanging out in their bedroom all the time, not wanting to spend time with family and siblings. But yeah, I mean, I would say it can look a lot of different ways. Some teens who experience anxiety and depression prior to this are experiencing it even more, especially in times of isolation. Because as a counselor, when I have a teen that's anxious or depressed, my go-to is find your support, surround yourself with, friends and family. And a big portion of that support has been shifted into an online space, if at all. So yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of teens are struggling right now, and especially to be watchful of those who were struggling prior to the stay-at-home order.
I want to touch on that a little bit too. I think working in a school, or I guess not technically in a school right now, just kind of the feedback I'm getting from students and teachers and other staff members at the school is there's this like general lack of motivation and focus. And I've had several kids reach out and just say like, I just am in this like sad funk and I don't have the motivation for my schoolwork. And it's really hard for me to focus and just sit down and kind of plug away at an assignment that might take me, ordinarily 10 minutes is taking me like several days to kind of get through. And I think that's been kind of eye-opening to just hear that. And it's from like several kids. So
one of the things I know that you've done is you've opened up a channel, for lack of a better term, or a time for the seniors at Hanford to connect with you or connect with each other during this time. What does that kind of look like? If you could kind of share a little bit about that.
Sure. Right now it's pretty benign. It's just I created a Canvas course to get as much information out to the kids as I can, because I know for me personally right now, I feel like I'm in limbo and I might be hearing information coming out from the district or the state, like what feels like a few minutes, but it's probably several days before the students. And just knowing that information makes me kind of feel better knowing like, okay, we have a plan going forward. And so I think hopefully that helps the kids to just be able to see that. And I have hopes and dreams and, wanting to create, office hours or something like this via Zoom for the kids to come and just ask questions, see my face so I can see them. That'd be awesome. So hopefully I can learn a little bit more about Canvas and grow it and stuff like that.
Awesome. So what makes this current pandemic, the coronavirus experience, different from other crises that teens may face? Like what are some unique things to this that we can be aware of and really identify?
I guess I'll start and then feel free anyone else to chime in, but it's so unique because no one's experienced this before. And so I feel like we're all, as individuals and supporters of youth and parents, friends, significant others, whatever, we don't know how to navigate it. And we're all learning literally just right alongside one another. So, I think normally to try and help kids like move through crisis, you do things like either safety net, make sure they feel safe. And then Courtney talked about, well, they don't have the kind of emotional support like they did before with reaching out to friends as easily and stuff like that. So the social distancing and some of the other things has kind of put a damper in my opinion on ways we typically help each other and help students, and really disrupted routines, which are like a huge part of just feeling sane for myself. Kind of waking up, taking a shower, going to work, getting my coffee, stuff like that. These kids don't have a routine anymore, or maybe are trying to adjust to a new routine that feels off.
Does anybody have anything that they would want to add to that?
I'll add to that. I think another big difference here too is that there's a lot of ambiguity. We don't have, even when there are dates thrown out, they're often not dates that stick. We don't have answers to what this will look like when things settle, what our new normal will look like. And so, a crisis, not all crises have, end dates, but in particular, there's just so much ambiguity. And I find that a lot of the teams that I work with are struggling with those questions and not having adults surrounding them that have answers or even close to answers at this point. And that makes this particular crisis especially hard.
Yeah, I think there's just information overload, and the misinformation out there too can make our lives feel out of control. And then you take the social isolation, and it's tricky to have a crisis that necessitates the physical distancing for kids. So tough stuff.
And I think
so go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to add to that too. I think also being, stuck at home with family and stuff like that too. You might be as a youth kind of hearing or taking on or thinking, like, are my parents going to have a job? Are we financially stable? And just being more, I guess, aware of the issues that adults may face too, just causing a lot of stress. Maybe kids who aren't usually aware of that because they're off hanging out with friends or at school or whatever. And now it maybe becomes something a little more constant in their house too, which is, how do you get away from that?
So two questions off of that to kind of play off of that. One, as parents, what can we be aware of that maybe we need to be careful of, or we need to navigate with caution as far as information with our kids right now? Do they need to see, hear, feel the financial stress that we may be feeling, or the job uncertainty, or things like that? What things do we need to be aware of that can really trigger our youth and maybe make things more difficult for them?
I guess I personally, and feel free to interject or say something else, anyone, but I think youth are aware of the stressors, and now they're more aware. And I think that as parents and adults, just being a little bit more calm, although it's an incredibly worrisome time on so many different levels, but just remaining calm when we're talking about those things, and maybe even just explaining a little bit more, this is what's going on, just really having a good open communication about those struggles if that's the route you want to go, but just trying to remain calm and not yelling and freaking out and crying, and because that's obviously not going to help your youth at all. But I understand we're treading new waters, so that's probably going to be hard for many people.
Sure. So really just being aware that it's not even so much the words. It can be, but how we react, our tone,
yes,
our body language, everything else, they're going to pick up on that and connect with that way more than, what comes out.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. So on the flip side of that, as a teen, how do I help my parents understand that I'm grieving or what I'm going through? And that's open to everybody.
Sure, I can speak to that a little. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I think the first is that I want to tell the teens that are listening now that I see you, and in a figurative way, I see you, and I want you to know that it is grief. And I think that parents need to start to come to terms with that. That what our teens, what our youth, what they're experiencing right now is absolutely grief, and just acknowledging that to your teenager, and teens. A lot of it's going to fall on your parents to accept that, and you can use language and be open with them about what things that you're sad about and what things that you're missing, But parents, absolutely, please understand that your teens right now are experiencing trauma and they are experiencing grief. And another kind of soapbox that I've been getting on with the parents of clients lately too is that, you know, we can experience our own grief and sadness about things like a missed prom or a graduation ceremony or just going to the beach with a car full of friends. We can grieve over those things and still hold a place in our hearts for others suffering in different ways. And we don't have to compare our grief. We can, as adults, be stressed out about finances and jobs and still understand that our teenagers are grieving and processing in a way that we never had to as a teenager. So teens, holding patience with your parents and understanding that, yes, they are going through stressors too, but parents, please recognize that our youth right now are really struggling.
Yeah, I like that you said that, kind of like separate your feelings as a parent from the kids, because we are going through two completely different versions of the same movie or story or event, and just processing things so much differently. So we need to absolutely not minimize or dismiss our kids' thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, and just really hear them, listen to them.
And remember, there's stages to grief, and I always refer to it like as an ocean, right? Like you're going to have good days and bad days and kind of move back and forth through those stages of, you know, denial, saying that, you know, oh, this virus won't affect our family, to anger. Your kids are mad at you because you're making them stay home and they can't see their friends. And then they do the bargaining. Well, okay, maybe 2 weeks, everything will be fine. Then I can go back and start hanging with my friends again. And then sadness with them missing their friends. And then finally acceptance, where, you know, this is happening and I need to figure out how to deal with it. So just to try to calm that, I guess, just be present and call it grief, give it a name to help manage it.
So would you say that those stages, you can mark them, or are they all going to be happening at different times and sometimes repeating and kind of going all over the place? And
I think
in other words,
I think it's constantly, like I said, like an ocean, like just different every day. Courtney, maybe you want to say something about that.
I mean, the old school of thought around the grief stages was that you did this stage first, this one second, this one third, and that's no longer the school of thought. The school of thought now is that you can go through every stage, you can go through one stage, you can go through all of them 5 times, and at any length of time. So that's a really great point, is that, I mean, it could change by the minute. I know for myself, when this all was first happening and having to switch my team to telehealth, that was challenging for me. And it felt like every minute we were getting new information. And so my own grief over the world as we knew it changed by the minute, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really important for us to remember too, because I know even for myself, watching my daughter and going, okay, she's here now. All right, we're good. We made it through that. And then an hour later, everything blew up and I'm going, wait, you were here and now you're, oh, okay, here we go. And just, especially as parents, to remind ourselves we're going through it. And if we're going through it, our kids are definitely going through it. And to try and put it in a box and create a linear path and say, hey, this is, we're setting ourselves and our kids up for failure. If we don't recognize that, I like, Chandra, how you put it, that ocean, and recognizing that it is an ocean. So one of the things that was brought up yesterday as we were talking, and I thought this was, it was a good punch for me. And so I wanted to bring it up, but let's talk about laziness and a lack of motivation and how to navigate that and what that's all about. Because I've talked to a lot of parents that are going, all my kid does all day long is lay on their bed and stare at their phone, and they're waking up at 1 o'clock and they don't want to do anything. They're just so lazy, and I don't get it. Help.
Yeah, I think that's my soapbox from yesterday. So I'll take that one, and feel free, Sandra or Liz, if you wanted to add too. So my first piece of advice to all parents that are watching is to just eliminate the word lazy from your vocabulary for the next few months. And there's a reason, and there's an important reason. Right now, we're all dealing with trauma. Our brains are experiencing a traumatic event. And that's a really big word to use, but it's also very true in a biochemical sense. And what we know about trauma as researchers, as therapists, is that our brains start to respond to things differently when we are going through a crisis, when we are experiencing trauma. And so in some ways, our brains start to process things more slow. Our bodies require more energy to do tasks that would have taken a lot less energy, even just a month prior. And so when we use the word lazy, we're discounting the amount of trauma that our teens are experiencing, that our youth are experiencing. And I know that you as adults have experienced this, where it's like, it's, how many showers am I getting in a week? And like, I actually have to plan it out or think about it, or, so there's things that even as adults, we know have taken more energy. Parenting is taking more energy right now, right? And so while it looks like our kids are being lazy and waking up at, odd hours of the day and taking 500 naps, it's because their bodies, their brains, their hearts need that time to rejuvenate. And one of the other, analogies that I use with my teens, even prior to COVID-19, but the theory was developed for those with chronic illness, and it's called the spoon theory. And if you haven't heard about spoon theory, I recommend just kind of Googling it and picking up on pieces that feel relevant to you. But the idea behind spoon theory is that everyone's kind of gifted these figurative spoons every morning when you wake up. And so let's say you get 20 spoons each day, and then you are given the choice of what you use those figurative spoons on. And so maybe for most people, taking a shower costs you 1 spoon every morning. And someone with anxiety, a teenager with depression, that shower could cost them 6 of their spoons. And then how many do they really have left to use on other things? And so right now, I think we are in a spoon limited time, especially our teens. And so when you're getting pushback from the request to empty the dishwasher, which seems like such a minimal thing that the teen could help out with, that could be costing them so many spoons already. And so my advice, other than erasing lazy from vocabulary for a little bit, is just checking in with them and asking, like, how's your energy level? How's your, what's your mood like lately? And not just making these assumptions that because there isn't in-person school, they're not waking up early, that automatically that they're choosing to be lazy, that it's more of the way that their brain and their bodies are processing a really difficult time.
Somehow I think spoons are going to join our vocabulary in our house very, very, very soon.
Yeah.
Chandra, Liz, do you guys have anything to add to that? Any thoughts or ideas?
No, I love that. That was when we were talking yesterday. I was just like, that was just like the perfect answer. So way to go, Courtney.
So along with that, just got a question in, and it's a good place to kind of put it in before we move on. If I'm a grandparent and I don't have my grandkids living with me, but I'm distant or whatever else, how can I help my grandkids during this time? What can I do?
I think just in my opinion, I think reaching out to them, if they text, or if a phone call, or writing them a letter or a message, email, something like that, it feels good to know, just for me as an adult, a person, that someone took the time to call me and ask how I'm doing, or put a card in the mail, or X, Y, or Z, just to reach out and ask how I'm doing. I think that is touching and more meaningful than we give it credit, just reaching out. And especially if we have to abide by distancing and whatnot, we have limited options.
I love that. And I think that it's so important right now to make our teens aware that we are thinking about them, because in a world where there's so much chaos and people are, ill, people are worried about finances, there a lot of adult worries, I'll call them, that are around. And who's thinking about the teenagers? Who's thinking about the youth? And so I think as a grandparent, absolutely sending texts each day if you're a texter, sending cards, if you have the ability, sending, they're really into Disney characters and they like to color, sending a Disney character book to color. Teens, those things that maybe we assume that they would be outgrown or things like that, they enjoy those things. I have teens in my office every week that are coloring in the strawberry shortcake coloring book. So I think that those things go so far, like Liz was saying, just to let them know that people are thinking of them right now.
So what does self-care look like in the midst of this? Whether we're a parent or we're a teen, and I'd love to get your insights from all of you on this. How do we take care of ourselves in the midst of this?
Sure. I think that self-care is going to look different for everybody. One of the things I think I shared yesterday was that I've worked with teens recently who have shared that they haven't left the house in over 20 days. And I've noticed, because I shared too, that I'm not the essential shopper in my house. And so I had realized it had been a while since I had left the walls of my house. And so I got in the car, because I'm an adult and I have that ability to do so, and just drove around. And immediately I felt better, just to see trees, to roll down the window and have air in my face, to see flowers, to see just something outside of my house. And so it's important for adults, for us to remember that our teens a lot of them don't have that choice. They don't have that control to just leave and get in the car for a minute. And so remembering to get them out of the house. I mean, if you feel comfortable and you're going grocery shopping and they can come along and drive in the car with you and sit and do whatever they want to do in the car while you're in the store shopping, they don't necessarily have to go in with you. But going for walks. But self-care can also look like, parents, self-care can also look like giving them an extra hour to watch a TV show to catch up on whatever they were watching. Self-care looks different now. Self-care looks like allowing them to keep in touch with friends. And right now that's happening through screen time. And I think that a lot of parents are worried about the amount of screen time that their kids are getting. So just a reminder that that's how they're getting a hold of their support network, their emotional support network, is through devices. So making sure that monitoring, but also honoring that that's how they're reaching out to friends. Self-care as a parent, getting in the car and going for a drive by yourself if you need to, recognizing and honoring your own feelings, allowing yourself to feel those feelings. I think that parents often experience a lot of guilt around having specific feelings during hard times, like, oh, I have to be strong for my child, I have to be strong for my family. But you have feelings and you have emotions that need to be expressed and felt, or they'll fester and blow up in the volcano style that I always share with my team. So yeah, those are just some of the initial thoughts that I have about self-care, but I'm sure Liz and Sandra also have thoughts on that too.
Courtney, when you said that, I was thinking about, the airplane example when you're getting ready to take off and the oxygen mask, right? And what do they say? The first thing is secure your oxygen mask first before you go to help other people, right? Because you have to take care of yourself to take good care of your kids too. So other things, yeah, just getting enough sleep, physical activity, trying to eat healthy, quiet time, maybe reading books, taking baths, I don't know, maybe journaling, focusing on positive thoughts, and whatever it is that you do to take care of yourself.
I want to add
right now
a couple things to that. Just because it seems like there's a lot of the coffee shops open and stuff like that, limit your caffeine, especially if you're a teen, because that's going to disrupt sleep and eating and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I know I find myself like, well, that's like the only thing that's open, so I'm just going to go for a drive, and then, oh, there's a coffee stand, I might as well get a coffee too every single day. So that's not on my part a good coping mechanism. So just be conscious of the caffeine intake and stuff if that applies to you as an adult or a youth. And then I think one of my favorite things that I've realized, do something for someone else within reason. So offer to do yard work for a neighbor who maybe can't get out there. Our next door neighbor is elderly, so she's kind of like, hey, would you mind cleaning out our gutters or mowing the lawn? And obviously she's inside kind of yelling at us out the door, and we're like, of course we'll do that. And it just feels so good to kind of escape my thoughts and my husband's thoughts and stuff, and we're just helping other people out. Kind of feels amazing. So if that applies to you, that's something you can do as an adult or a teen, find something to brighten someone's day.
So what are some ways that we can help kind of create that environment in our homes or in our rhythms throughout the day? Are there some simple things that we can do to kind of help stimulate that process or really encourage it?
I like go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, I like the idea of routine, but with the addition to that statement that flexibility is also really important right now, parents. Like I find that parents like went in real fast with the idea of routines, and teens were like, like I didn't even have this much routine like in school. Like what's happening? And so routines I think can be great, but they also have to be met with a lot of flexibility as well. And sorry, Liz, you can continue on to what your thought was too.
That's actually what I was going to say. I was going to say the exact thing, like maintain routines, but then also be mindful of that it's going to be difficult transitioning to a new routine. So literally the exact same thing, and just, making sure you're eating, you're showering, and regularly. I personally find myself like my eating times are off and my sleeping times are off. So just trying to get into a routine. And then also too, I think encouraging your kids to reach out to their friends and stuff like that, just for their like emotional stability, because they could be withdrawing from friends or even yourself as parents. So encouraging them to just, hey, why don't you check in on so-and-so, see how they're doing, if they're not already, just to give them a little peace of mind. And, maybe you're helping someone else out.
Maybe make sure everybody gets alone time in the house too, that everybody has a place where they can go and have their own time, and maybe do things you don't usually have time for, like with your kids, like board games or crafts or drawing or reading. And just ask your kids how you can support them. I think that's important. Communication's key to that. Just truly listen to what your child's saying and their worries, and validate their feelings.
Kendra, I want to jump in there.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in there. Kendra hit on one point that so many of my teens have talked about, especially in group. I had asked them a couple weeks ago, what are some things that you wish your parents understood about what your COVID-19 world experience is right now? And the number one thing has been, I just want time by myself. And we have to understand as parents that our kids got an 8 or more hour a day break from siblings and from us. That no longer applies. And just as it's a struggle for us as parents, it's also a struggle for our teens, especially right now. And that's normal. And needing that alone time is normal. It's what rejuvenates us to come back to the family system and participate in a way that's friendly and effective. But when they don't get that time away, that's when you start to see things that feels like moodiness or attitude and things like that. So yes, absolutely, making sure that our teens have that time and that space to rejuvenate alone. And then the other thought that I had that I wanted to be sure to bring up is that I think as parents, seeing our kids struggle, seeing them hurt, seeing them sad is scary. And so we try to fix it, or we try to minimize it. We try to come up with a reason why it's not so terrible or when it's going to get better. And when we do that, we're not honoring the feeling and the emotions that are there, and it feels invalidating to our teens. And so then that feeling is never processed, and it's stuffed. And then eventually it's going to explode, and it's going to look, like I said, like a volcano or whatever analogy you want to use. But I think that it's so important for us right now to honor our teens' feelings, to honor their grief, their sadness, and not necessarily try to fix it. And I know that as parents, that's so hard. But modeling to them and saying to them, I've noticed you've been kind of isolating lately, and I can't imagine how hard this is for you and how sad you are about this event, or how sad you are about missing your friends. And I just want you to know that I see that, and I'm here for you in whatever way that you need me to be here for you. But sometimes there isn't always, you can't just run in and try to fix it. It's so much more powerful just for them to feel heard and seen in that way.
Okay, dads, you've been put on notice. Take the fix-it hat off, put the listening hat on, and just listen, as painful as it is. And yes, I'm saying that to myself as well. Don't fix it. Listen, validate. I love that. It was really good for me to hear too, the idea of space, because we all had places we went and different atmospheres. And so we could come back into our home space, ready for whatever it was. And now we don't have that. And I'm sitting here saying that, broadcasting from my makeshift office, which is my son's room, right? And I have to remember that, because we're sharing a space right now. And I have embarked on his personal space because it fits and it works for my office at home. So that was a great reminder for me, and just for other parents that have transitioned to working at home. Where are you set up now? What are you doing now? How is that invading what was, or changing the boundaries or the patterns or the rhythms that were, and allowing for space and grieving there, and giving everybody the opportunity to deal with that. So I love that. Thank you. So a little switch. One of the big things that has come out of this that we haven't had to deal with on a grand scale before is online learning. And I know as a parent, it has been a crazy roller coaster trying to understand what's expected, what counts, what doesn't count, what works, and everything else. And then having our students understand that as well. So how can we stay informed with everything going on with online learning and expectations and school right now in the midst of this?
I'll just chime in really quick. I think the most important thing that I've been telling my parents and my students is reach out directly to the teachers, because every single teacher is going to have different expectations. Every school, every district, has different expectations for their staff members. And I think I'm hearing a lot of kids say, well, my friend at such and such school or in that other district, they're doing this. And that's great. But what's your teacher doing? What are your child's teachers doing? And so, and even as a counselor, I don't know, I know every teacher is doing things a little bit differently. So it's so important for the kids and the parents to reach out to those teachers directly. And if you're, having a hard time, because obviously teachers are getting probably hundreds of thousands of emails right now, reach out to a counselor or something too, just to get a little bit more help. But I think reaching out and not just kind of curling in on yourself and just thinking, this might pass. Maybe it'll just let me pass the class if I just do what I think I'm supposed to do. Don't do that. Reach out, find out what's expected of you.
Yeah, I think
Chandra, do you have
a couple of days ago, it was that the work, at least reading in the Richland School District, was just supplemental. And now as of yesterday, work is being graded. So, and it counts. So things are changing every day. So yeah, definitely be communicating with your teacher or your counselor, checking Canvas, find out what's going on, because things are changing. And I still think there's going to be more changes. I don't think this isn't the end all be all. There's more changes coming. So
absolutely,
you got to stay updated.
I think that's one of the new norms that we just need to get used to is, change was always a constant, but change is absolutely the norm now, and just expect it, especially with everything going on. And that kind of leads to the next question. And this was a big one. How can we, and I'm checking my notes because I want to make sure that I get this right. A lot of our teens are grieving because they're missing the ceremonies and the celebrations. Graduation aren't happening. I mean, yes, they're graduating, but the pomp and circumstance and the celebrations and the parties, birthdays, moving up from one grade to the next, they're all prom, they're all kinds of things, rites of passage and everything else that aren't happening now. How can we step into that with our teens and acknowledge that and address it and help them through that, especially when most of us had those things. We got to experience those things.
I think just as an adult and a parent, celebrate them any way you can. Celebrate your student any way you can. Make a banner for them. If there's a couple seniors at local high schools in Richland here that live on my street, and they've got these signs outside of their door that say class of 2020, Hanford High, class of 2020, Richland High, and stuff like that. And maybe that's embarrassing to the teen, to the youth, sorry. But I think, any way you can to celebrate that kid. And, I've heard of parents planning a skip day for their senior. So it's like, okay, you're not going to log on to Canvas today. I'm going to take you and we're going to go do this, which options are limited, cool. But kind of fun little things like that. And even, I've heard people talking about, my kids had a Zoom party and stuff like that. And they were all dancing and listening to music. And, as kind of corny as that sounds, that's what we have right now. And I think, again, just celebrating the kids and then allowing them to be with their friends, to have some semblance of normal life. There's some pretty creative ideas that I've been seeing on YouTube and Facebook and all kinds of things. So people are getting really creative, and encouraging families to just keep in touch with their schools. Their schools are planning graduations and their schools are planning, senior parties and stuff. And unfortunately, no, it's probably not going to be in June or July. Maybe it's August, for whatever event it is. But we're trying to, sorry, my cat just tried to get me. We're trying to make it special for seniors within reason.
Liz, I'll expand on that some more too. I think that, yes, absolutely. Celebrate in creative ways and in whatever ways that you can think of, and still recognize that it stinks that it's not the way that they were expecting. And so making space for them to still have sadness, to still experience disappointment, but also providing, a creative way that does fill them up, even if it may not be in the same way the experience would have been prior. And then I think, Liz, you had mentioned, we as adults, like, we all got to experience these things, and teens love when parents fess up, by the way. They love when we say, I have no clue about Snapchat because I still had to take my camera to Walgreens to get the films developed. So they love when you admit to them that, like, you don't get it. And parents, it's okay to admit that. It's okay to say, I don't even know what to do. I've never parented through a pandemic before, and my mom never parented through a pandemic either, so we can't even ask grandma. And this is how we're going to celebrate your birthday, and it's a little bit different. It's weird, and I've never had to experience a birthday parade like this before, but here's what we're doing. So just taking, the time to honor their feelings, but also fess up that this is new to you too, and that you haven't got to experience the same type of grief or disappointment around these events. I think it's really important.
Does anybody have anything else they want to add to that?
They took it all from me. That's what I was going to say. Just that, for many of these kids, this is the biggest thing they've experienced in their lives. Like, I'm thinking of Richland High School walkout and graduation and signing day and senior barbecue and all those things. And so, acknowledge their feelings, like Courtney said, and dream big, start to envision and make plans of how to celebrate those things in the future when we can.
Well, I know, at least in my home, my kids are aching to step back into society. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my daughter's like, can I just go over to so-and-so's house, please? And and this and that. And that got me thinking, because they're asking a lot. How do we address, or how can we address reintegration with our teens when we have no idea what that looks like or when that could happen, or anything else, as the ones that they look to as to how to navigate what the future holds?
I would say to that, maybe like creating scenarios and maybe doing role plays, just like we do like fire drills at school, like practicing that, like how is this going to look when you get to spend time with your friends again? This is how we're going to go grocery shopping. This is how we're going to go out to eat. We're going to keep safe distances. We're going to sanitize and wash our hands. Like, I think that's or it's not the only thing, but that's one thing that we could do is role play that with our kids. And hopefully that'll limit some anxiety if we practice what it looks like.
Love that.
I'll give a shameless plug to counseling from the counselor. So I am guessing, my hypothesis is that we're going to experience our teens going through an increase of anxiety, possibly depression, when things do open up, when we are able to reintegrate again, because there will be more stressors, and our brain will still be processing the trauma that we're going through currently. And so I think having those conversations about the reality of what life will look like when our new normal happens, and preparing them, talking about coping skills now. Things are hard right now, so reaching out for counseling now. Your teen doesn't have to be in crisis mode to reach out to a counselor. And now would be a great time to try out counseling, seeing if it's a fit for your teen, because they have more time during the day to do so. Therapists right now, counselors, we have more availability because we're not working around the traditional school hours, but taking care of some of those things now, building the coping skills now, learning how to communicate now, so that when reintegration does happen, they have the confidence in themselves to proceed in a way that feels good to them.
So the other piece to that is, and I'll throw all of us in here because we all have a tendency to do this, but when we experience hurt or we experience crisis, we tend to lean more toward extremes, and feelings and emotions and everything else becomes heightened. And so kind of the question that I would ask is, for all the teens that are going and asking, even if they say it jokingly, but there's a hint of truth, is this hopeless? What would you say to that? And I would love to hear from all of you on this one.
Sure. Well, I absolutely hold hope. And I hold hope for a new normal. And I was reading an article today that talked about like daydreaming and thinking up, what we want our new normal to look like. What are aspects of life now that are kind of cool? What are aspects of our routine that we kind of like? And, maybe those things are hard to pinpoint right in a certain moment when we're hurting. But for me, like, I make myself breakfast in the morning, and like, I never make myself breakfast. And that's a small little thing, but it's things like that, you know what? Like, that's worth it to me. That's going to be in my new normal. And so there's just things like that I've been noticing throughout daily life, and taking the time to be hopeful about what my new normal will look like. And I think in particular for teens, right now is so hard because there's not a lot that you have control over. Even adults right now, we don't have a lot of control over. And so parents, I would encourage you to open conversation and communicate with your teen about what little things are they liking about what's happening right now as far as their daily routines, and daydream with them about what new normal could look like for you all, but making it a family thing and encouraging them to reach down for the hope that they might have too right now.
Chandra, what about you? Are we hopeless?
No, we're not hopeless. No, we're very hopeful. I guess to parents, I would just say again, show compassion to your kids, validate their feelings. Remember, they're the same person that they were before quarantine, even if they seem like they're a little bit different now. And to kids, talk to your parents about how you're feeling, or find any trusted adult to talk to if you need somebody to talk to. It could be a relative, it could be Justin, your youth pastor. But ask yourself who supports you and find that person and talk to them. And just know that things are really tough right now, and but you matter, and that you're loved, and that we can do hard things together.
So
we'll get through this.
Because a question came in. How do we best help our teens know that they aren't alone and that their feelings do matter? And that came from a parent that's probably going, I want my kid to know. So how do I do that? What would you say to that parent?
Again, just to let them to open up communication with your kid. And I know sometimes it's uncomfortable for parents, but you have to ask those hard questions, and just open the dialogue with your kids. Did that answer your question, Justin? I kind of lost track of what was the question.
No, absolutely.
Justin, maybe even like a tangible example of that, because I know that it can be really difficult for parents to find opportunities to talk with their teen. Maybe that could look like writing a note and saying like, hey, I know that you've been really sad about blank event that you've missed out on, and I just wanted you to know that I'm thinking about you, and if you ever want to talk, let's set a date. Being intentional about time too, and setting like a particular date. They didn't cancel the ability to sit in the backyard and have a picnic with just you and your teenager, or, you know, sit in the car and go for a drive. So I've just found that a lot of times discussions and communication between parent and teenagers can kind of go wonky when we're doing it verbally. And I've had a lot of success with parents who write notes or have a journal back and forth, and using that time to write. It gives us a little more time to process and think about what we're saying and how we're saying it before it's said. But yeah, I just wanted to recommend a tangible idea might be to start writing to your team.
I love that. I know for myself, I'm not a big texter. I'm still one of those old school people who likes to actually talk on the phone or talk in person. And so whenever I send a text to my son or my daughter, I get like the massive emoji responses and everything else because they're blown away. And so I know that that reaches them. So just looking for those meaningful ways that you know are going to connect with them. And maybe it's out of the ordinary. Like for me, it's texting, and or maybe it's an email, or maybe it's a handwritten note, or whatever. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
Liz, are we hopeless?
No, I think to a fault, I'm maybe an eternal optimist. So I guess my thoughts on hope just right now, being supportive of one another, and maybe when you are hopeless, that's harder to do, but or being supportive of your community, being supportive of your parents, being supportive of your kids, being kind of the rock for people that when I see that, for people who do that for me, that gives me hope. And so that's kind of my challenge to all of you is be the rock for someone, or be many rocks for multiple people. And I think that's, I don't know, that gives me hope.
Awesome. So the last question that we have is, if I am in crisis, or I have a friend that is in crisis, what can I do? What do I do?
I think if you're the one in crisis, don't be alone. Ask a family member or friend to stay with you. You can call or text the national hotlines. If you have a friend that's in crisis, we use the acronym ACT, which is Acknowledge, Care, and Tell. So show you acknowledge by saying something like, "Man, it really sounds like you're hurting right now." Show you care by saying something like, "I care about you so much. I don't want to see you hurting this bad." And tell. So if you have an immediate concern about somebody's safety, tell a trusted adult. It might sound something like, "Youth Pastor Justin will know how to get us help, the help that you need. Let's go call him together," or text him. So remember, you don't have to be the expert and have all the answers. Just don't keep secrets. So if somebody's saying that they're in crisis and they need help, you need to tell somebody that can get them help. And I think that kids, are dependent upon us as adults to take action. So if you're worried about your son or daughter, it's so important that you ask the questions directly, and that you know what to say and what to do when a young person in your life needs help.
Liz, Courtney, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think I wholeheartedly agree with what Chandra said.
Ditto. I think that Chandra hit on the most important points specific to crisis. And just a reminder too, that you don't have to be, or your team doesn't have to be in crisis for you to reach out. There's a lot of counselors in our area that are accepting new clients. And a lot of us are doing telehealth. And so we're doing it like video style, just like you guys are seeing me here. One kind of analogy that I like to use when I talk to teenagers about counseling specifically. So any of you that are struggling and are thinking about the idea of counseling, but you also think that it'll be like a judgy old lady that you're talking to or something. There's so many different types of counselors and therapists just as human beings, we're all different. And so the analogy that I like to use is that, you know, if you went to the salon or say the barber and you asked for, you know, a little off the top, or, you know, just trim the ends, and you walked out with a purple mohawk, you wouldn't go back. So don't go back. You can shop, just like, you know, you're shopping for your perfect hair person. You can shop for counselors and therapists. Not everyone will be a good fit, but there is a good fit for you. And the other piece of that too is right now with telehealth, you have access to the entire state of Washington, counselor and therapist wise. It doesn't have to be someone in Tri-Cities. So if you're struggling with a particular thing, or you fit within a certain population that you're really passionate about, or there's just this really bomb looking counselor that's in Seattle that you seem like you would be a great fit with, you can contact them and they will see you over telehealth. So you're not just bound to the counselors here in Tri-Cities. I think there's wonderful counselors here, but you know, when you open up telehealth, it gives us access to even more people to connect with. So just know that we're here for you as professionals too. And I'm accepting new clients as well. I've got online groups. If you're finding that you want to, you know, try something out, but you're not quite wanting to meet with someone individually, I do groups online that have been a lot of fun too. And I know other counselors are too. So just find a good fit. And you can reach out to me if I'm a friendly face, and I'll find someone that's a good fit for you, even if it's not me, because I want you to get the support that you need.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you all for your time. Super, super helpful, super amazing. I appreciate all of you taking the time to share. And I know that we've all been blessed because of it. So thank you very much. And to all of our Hillspring tribe and all of our friends out there, thank you, and grace and peace.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.